welcome to Health Styles Market. My name is Arlys. I'm the owner of Health Styles Market. Today, we're going to talk to you about part 2 of Be Your Own Advocate. This is a series I'm doing to help you be a better advocate for yourself, to get better health care, to have your doctor's appointments go better, and to learn more about your own health so it's easier to make better decisions and to take better care of yourself. If you remember on part 1, one of our key points was health is all the details. It just is. That's what health is. It's all the details. And your health care is in all the details. So in part 1, I talked about the recommendation of filling out paperwork on your own health history. And Crystal has created a new web page for us for the store. And on that web page, you'll be able to go to that and you'll easily find our consultation packet. There's one for women, one for men, one for children. Start with yourself first and print that out and start filling that out. It isn't often if someone is middle-aged or older and has quite an extensive health history, that this is an easy fix, like you can just, sit down and write it out in 5 minutes. It takes longer than that. And especially the timeline that has taken you from birth to your present age. There's multitude of reasons why this is important and why that's step 1. So go back and watch part 1 again. But in this video, down in the description box, Crystal will put the link so you can just click there and go and you'll see where the consultation packets are. That's what you use to start this journey of writing up your health history. What's interesting is usually when people take the time to write this out, they start to see the puzzle pieces fall in place. And you'll see that what happened to you in your teenage years has a factor on how you feel in your 20s and 30s and so forth. And life was good until you got in that car accident in your 30s. And now all of a sudden, and sometimes we know that, but it's way clearer when it's down on paper. So welcome to our webpage. Keeping track of your health history is also beneficial for you and to do better in advocating for yourself in your doctor's appointments, but it's also of interest and concern to your family and also to your children and future generations. So class 2, we want to focus on getting your medical records and why that's important and what that really means and how to go about it. So I want to use an example for you that our family went through. We had a family member who went to ER for 6 hours with a crisis, a health crisis. And one of the things that was done in ER was a chest x-ray. And another thing that was done was a CT angiogram of the chest. So we're very grateful that the ER doctors at our local hospital focused on saving that individual's life, which thankfully was achieved. But when we got those medical records, let me back up, after the ER visit, this individual had a week in the hospital. And so after they were home, we went and got the medical records, and there were over 100 pages, about 108 pages exactly, for that 6 hours in ER and almost a week in ICU. So I dug into those, and this is how I dig into medical records. I'm making notes, I'm highlighting, I'm Googling. Yes, Google is your friend, and here's another example. And so it isn't so much what's on here that is relevant to you, it's the fact that you need to have your copies of your medical records. So here's a key thing that took place. On this CT angiogram of the chest in the ER, the radiologist does up a report and noted that there were 6 issues that were of concern. So as we got our diagnosis in ER, which turned out to be AFib, of course, the focus was on the heart and anything to do with heart-related issues. But there were other things that were noted by the radiologist that were never discussed with us and never brought to our attention. And we weren't aware of them at all until we went back weeks later and got these copies of these medical records from our hospital. And as I dug into these, I realized, so now the AFib is under control. And what about these other issues? What about these other issues? So there's 2 issues out of the 6 that are geared to the heart, but 4 other things showed up. So time went by, and I made copies of these and prepared for the cardiology appointment. And so we went to that appointment, and at the end, when they asked, the doctor asked, do you have any other questions? And I said, actually, I do. I'd like to draw your attention to something that took place in ER before the admission to ICU at the hospital. And so I brought this to his attention. And I said, what I'd like to know is, because those 4 issues may or may not have been resolved, and this is a couple months later, would you be willing to order that same CT angiogram of the chest? And we can look at that to see, apples to apples, if those 4 other issues have resolved, or if they're a part of a bigger health picture that we had no idea. And the doctor's words were, good catch, thank you. Now, I wasn't looking for that, but I appreciated that they acknowledged that. But the reality is, you don't know unless you get copies of your medical records and unless you dig through them and read them. And so you can look up anything on Google, all those little hard medical terms, and take notes. And so that you can go back and reread that and know what you've got in your medical records. So that's just one example of how getting those 108 pages of medical records became actually a part of our health journey for that family member. So one other thing that's interesting is we got into a little discussion, like who reads 108 pages of medical records other than interested family members? So the family member thought the doctors did. So eventually we asked the nurse, and this is months later, and we're in a discussion with the nurse, and she kind of hesitated, and then she said, well, actually, no one does. Those are brought down to just a couple paragraphs, and that's what's passed off to your primary care physician or any specialists that are involved in your care. And I realized that that answer, it was accurate. I realized that that kind of lit a fire under me to be more fervent and more dedicated to getting our family's medical records and really knowing what's going on. So another medical record that you want to get a copy of is, this is an example of a visit to the cardiologist in regards to AFib, and it's pages and pages. It is, I don't know, 8 pages for that doctor's visit, which was approximately an hour with a specialist, with a cardiologist. And when we go to our doctor's appointments, I take a file folder and I take a notebook and I take notes. And so I'm jotting down what the doctor's saying and what they're recommending. But I realize in visiting with customers that most people really aren't doing that. And so let's recall and remember and acknowledge that most people, when they go to the doctor, are kind of at their worst. Like, you're going because you don't feel good. You're going because you have a medical issue. You're going because you need to. And so we're just not at our best. So we're not our clearest. We may have pain, headaches, joint pain, whatever. And so we're just not at our best. And are we really paying attention? And are we really hearing what the physician is saying? So by getting your medical records of the doctor's visit, this was just one visit, you can add that to your stash at home. But here's what else happens. When you read through that, you're made aware of what they really recommended. In this case, there was medication information, dosages were changed, there was additional testing that was recommended, a heart procedure that was recommended for the future to look into, continue with cardiac rehab, and to return in 1 month is a significant piece. So this kind of medical records is very easy to obtain. you bring it to the receptionist's attention when you first come for your appointment. And as you're exiting, so you're finished with the physician or the PA or the nurse practitioner, and as you're exiting and you're checking out, you want to just simply ask, could I have a copy of today's visit with the physician? And the first time you ask, it's a little bit whatever, but this is your right to have these medical records. And it's also going to give you a recap when you get home of what did the doctor see, what did the doctor think, what are they recommending, and maybe you heard it all, and maybe you didn't. And so this helps cover you. So it's easy to just ask them. It's all in the computer. It's easy for them to print it. If for any reason there's a hesitation, you can just ask, when would those be ready? And I'll come back and pick them up. Or you can ask them to mail that to you. So then let's talk about a few other medical records you want to get. This is just an example of blood work. It's just a regular wellness panel. Lots of people get this once a year. You need to make sure you're getting copies of all of your blood work. Here's an example of a thyroid panel. And let's say that you're a thyroid patient and you want to be getting these and having copies, and then you want to compare how was your blood work last year and the medication you took all year, and how is it this year, and how are you feeling now? Those are just tiny little examples of how we would use that. So let me give you some examples of what we use to go get medical records. I went to our local hospital. So not only as a hospital patient, but we have a lot of medical care providers in our community that are affiliated with the hospital. It's one of the easiest ways to doctor, but it's also one of the easiest ways to get your medical records. So I went in person, visited with them, and very, very helpful. And she just gave me this little form and highlighted, and this is what you would need to fill out and have with your driver's license or ID. And you can go back in person to the hospital and meet with her and fill out your form, and they will access the records and make those available to you and print them for you. So she made a little statement. All records are only kept for 10 years unless cancer is involved, then they're kept indefinitely. And just as a side note, anything that's imaging, so that would be anything basically from radiology, those records are only kept for 7 years. So doing this, I'm doing this for this particular family member to keep current, but you also want to get old medical records of old experiences. The hospital is also, our local hospital has now outsourced the medical records, and so this is an additional way that you can access them, and you don't have to go to the hospital. And this is an easy process, and you just follow the instructions. It's all done online. They email them to you, and in just a very short amount of time, I'm thinking about 24 hours. Was it up to a week?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. And then this, I went to the veterans office here. We have a little clinic for the veterans for the VA in Gillette. And this is their form. They are happy to have you fill this out, bring it back. The medical records are stored in Sheridan. They access those, print them out, and make them available to you, or they're happy to print them and mail them to you. So everyone was very welcoming, make it very easy. They're there to help. They'll do whatever they can to help you. So what do you do with the medical records after you get them? Here's one example. So we just started a binder and then tabbed it if you want to keep them organized, or if you have a lot of different records of different types. So we have one tab that's medications, prescriptions you're taking. Here's one that's hospital visits, hospital stays. Here's one that's for x-rays or imaging, lab work, ER visits, if you did physical therapy, if you've had any surgery procedures, so you can easily keep them separated out. So that's one example of how to organize them at home. Another example would be to just have a bigger binder, depending on how much medical care, how many doctor's appointments, how much ER visits, how many times have you been in the hospital. You can actually just buy a binder like this at Walmart or at Office Depot, and you can label it. I didn't, but you can just label it with the year. And so if you frequently have a lot of medical care issues, you can have a binder per year and then if you're doing that, you would take the medical records and whatever, this is what I recommend, whatever is the most recent goes on top. So to file these when you get them home or you get access to them is just fast and easy because the most current, the most recent is right there, right on top. This is critical in order for you to know what's going on with your own health, critical for you to know your health history and then what's been going on, what brought you to today, what's going on in your health, what is your doctor advising. And this is also critical in working with other doctors besides your primary care physician and working with any other doctors that you're referred to, that you're in the loop and you're being an advocate for yourself with your own medical care. If you have any questions, please contact us and Crystal will put our contact information below. This is part 2 in our series and we'll be introducing part 3 really soon. We hope you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and we look forward to working with you. Thank you so much and have a great day.